We're on to the third day, I guess technically fourth day here of free agency, and there's still a number of interesting names out there on the market. We're going to take a look at the top players that are still available. I'm Trevor Lane. This is the Basketball Bulletin. Right now, about 70% of you watching this, you're not subscribed. Let's fix that. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications as well. Joining me, Donnie Freeman. Donnie, how do you feel about the summer so far for the NBA? Has it been exciting enough? Is it underwhelming? Where are you at?
I guess it depends who you root for, right? Because and that's the case for every team. But like for a lot of it, it kind of stalled out for like the Lakers waiting on Ayton, and then you got like the Warriors. They're like
they haven't done anything,
all in on Horford and waiting, and there's nothing going on. But I think overall, it's been pretty exciting. There's been a lot of things happening. I don't know if it's lived up to the exact billing that Shams gave it like a week ago, but you know.
A week ago it did. That's just it. I think the reason why people are looking at it right now and thinking, well, why is it so boring and all that, and not even really, but just a little underwhelming. It's because a lot of the big activity happened around the draft.
Yeah, I need to go back and look at a list of things. And
exactly. There were actually a lot of big moves, but let's get into it. There are some really intriguing for a free agent class that is known as a very shallow class. There's actually some really intriguing names still out there. So let's take a look. This is my pal Keith Smith. The front office show put this together. The top free agents available now. Some of these have come off the board since he put this list together, but nonetheless, most of these are indeed still available. So at the point guard spot right now, his top 5, Josh Giddey. Now he's not leaving Chicago. He's restricted, but nonetheless, yes, still, the top guard out there, but we know he's not actually going to go anywhere. He's going to work a new deal with the Bulls. But Chris Paul reportedly deciding between the Suns and the Clippers. But now the bottom line is that he just wants to start somewhere. Wherever he goes, he wants to be a starter. Do you think he still is that?
I mean, he was fine as that last year, but ideally, if I'm a team bringing in Chris, I would like for him to be a backup. Like he was pretty good last year. I can understand why he thinks he should be a starter. But I mean, if you are going to limit your market to a couple of teams. For example, I think he'd be great in Milwaukee right now.
Sure.
With what they've got.
Yeah.
Like, I know they're going to put the ball in Giannis's hands a lot and let him play like point forward and stuff like that. But like Chris would be perfect for what they've got. And I think he would be a starter on that team.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's going to be the case in a couple of locations otherwise, right?
That's the thing with Chris Paul. Like, is he really going to be a fit everywhere? I don't know. Not at this age. And who knows if he wants to continue playing, but reportedly he wants to stay near family in Los Angeles. So Phoenix, the Clippers, making some sense for him. But he played 82 games last year, which is absolutely incredible at his age. So now Chris Paul is still one of the top guards out there on the market. Malcolm Brogdon, also, getting up there, 32 years old, has an injury history, but he's a very steady. If you're looking for somebody who could play on or off ball, Malcolm Brogdon is one of the prototypes for that specific skill set. And I think he could be a real help to a lot of teams out there.
Do you know what Brogdon shot last year?
I don't.
Actually, I'm pulling that up right now. Let's see what Brogdon did. But yeah, he's another guy that I think a lot of teams should be in on. He's just another one of those older Washington guys that teams should be targeting. He actually had he's always like this, but he played 24 games last year. So I was going to say he actually had a down year, which that's a bad thing in and of itself. But he had come off of 44% to 29% from 3 last year. But he's a career 39% shooter.
Yeah.
He's just got so many seasons in there where he's playing a third or 2/3 of the season, right?
Well, and he was in Washington last year too. Like, I mean, you got to account for that. Like, what are the looks he's getting in Washington compared to what he'd be getting on a better team? And no shots at the Wizards. I think they're building something good there, but
he shot 41 in Portland the year prior.
Exactly.
More games.
Exactly. If you're getting Malcolm Brogdon, you're looking at those numbers and you're saying, yeah, last year, small sample size, outlier, he'll bounce back to what he's been, which has been a hyper efficient guard, scoring the ball from both the mid-range and from 3, and then very, very low turnovers, which is something else that you like. I think Malcolm Brogdon makes a lot of sense as like a third guard for a lot of teams. All right, let's take a look at the next guy on the list here, which is let's call him the explosive Russell Westbrook. Reportedly, he's not going to wind up with the New York Knicks. Could he actually still wind up in Sacramento, playing alongside Dennis Schroeder there in some type of a guard combo? I'm having a hard time. I still think Russ should have stayed in Denver, personally.
Well, yeah, I do think that would have been the case, but they felt like they probably should have went back to Bruce Brown, who I can understand that argument for. Yeah, I assume he's the Russ replacement for them. There was also reporting that with like Dennis and stuff like that, and if they're unable to find a trade, which could potentially be happening for Monk, that Russ doesn't wind up going to Sacramento either.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know exactly if he doesn't go there, if he's leaving Denver, as it appears, if he doesn't go to the other team you mentioned a second ago. The Knicks, there it is, which that's off the table mostly since Clarkson got added to. Like, I don't really know where he ultimately goes and what he's trying to play for. He's kind of an enigma. I don't know if he's trying to go out there and just ring chase or if he's trying to be a meaningful part of a rotation, maybe both together. You know, I don't know. But ultimately, though, we know who Russ is, and I think ultimately, though, with all of his strengths and weaknesses, whatever those may be, he's somebody that needs a very specific type of team.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of teams that have the spacing, the shooting, and the need for a guard that can kind of give him probably what he's looking for. Ironically, Milwaukee comes to mind.
Milwaukee could be interesting. We know they're looking for firepower. Certainly, they made the big, bold move to go and get Miles Turner and waive and stretch Damian Lillard's salary. They need a point guard.
But can you run Russ and Giannis together?
I don't know, but I kind of want to see it just for entertainment's sake. Yeah, that could be an interesting landing spot. Ben Simmons, Ben Simmons, he's technically a point guard on here because he handles the ball, but really defensively, you're playing him as like a 4 or a 5, probably a 5, which is really unique. But the problem is the dude won't shoot. So I could see him fitting certain places, but you have to have the right team around him. The rival Brook Lopez with the Clippers. I wonder if that means that Ben Simmons is on his way out the door.
Yeah, they kind of used him as like a backup small ball 5, which I thought he was actually good in LA, but again, he just refuses to shoot the ball. He will get to the rim for a layup and literally pass it. Like, Ben, you have to lay the ball up. You're right at the rim, dude. Like, I don't get it. It's something mental. We've long said that about him, but I think, again, we know what he is. And with his strengths, I think he could be a good player on the team. But I do think you need shooting around him. You need space around him. You need to be able to put the ball in his hands because he's not going to do much for you if he doesn't have the ball in his hands on the offensive side of the court. So I think he's a guy that could land with multiple teams, but he's apparently trying to get off of a minimum contract too. So
I don't know if that's going to happen.
But, I don't know.
But Donnie, I don't mean to speak it into existence here or anything, but if the Lakers do miss on Al Horford and they're not able to get a Nick Richards trade done, they could turn to Ben Simmons. That could be a possible thing. And then he could just stay in LA. All right, let's move on though before we do speak that into existence. So let's get to the shooting guards. Now, the shooting guards, we can basically eliminate the first 4 names because 2 of them, Exum and Eric Gordon, are already gone. And then the other 2 are restricted free agents. Quentin Grimes not going anywhere. Cam Thomas not going anywhere. As I recall, there were some rumblings about what the deal would actually look like with Grimes and the Sixers. I don't remember if that actually went through at this point, but I know he's not leaving.
They said he was looking for about $25 million.
Right.
Which, okay.
Yeah, I just don't think he winds up leaving, even if it's for less than that. So
yeah.
D'Anthony Melton, though, very, very interesting. Unfortunately, has a long injury history as well. But if somebody picks him up on a prove-it contract, he's a very good defensive player, one of the best guys when it comes to steals rate, can shoot the 3, struggles a little bit overall with his shooting percentages, but good 3-point shooter, defends well, can play on or off the ball, versatile player. I like D'Anthony Melton a lot. I think there's going to be a number of teams interested. Only played 6 games last season. Unfortunate ACL injury when he was with the Warriors. 38 games the season before that. So that injury history is a factor. But if you're willing to gamble on the injury front, he is a very, very talented player that, frankly, if the injury history wasn't there, there's no way he's still on the board right now.
Oh, yeah, for sure. He's absolutely coming off if he's not dealing with that. But he's the most, I think, intriguing guard still on the market. There's some other guys you could maybe look at and potentially take a flyer on, like a GP2 or maybe Burks, I believe, is still out there. Shamit, Lonnie Walker. Like, there's some guys out there, but I would imagine that he wouldn't be on the market right now, like you were saying, if he didn't sustain that injury. And I think that he should bounce back from it fine. He's had plenty of time to recover at this point, and he's still young, 26, 27. I would take a flyer on him for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I like D'Anthony Melton a lot. I think he'll be a good fit somewhere, and good thought too on Gary Payton II. I think he's going to be a target for a few teams, especially if they miss on Melton. Gary Payton II makes a lot of sense. All right, the small forwards. Look again. There's not a lot to be. We knew the wings specifically. It was a very shallow pool to begin with, but Amir Coffey is a guy that I do like a lot. Long, lanky. He's got something out there on the perimeter. Yeah, Caleb Martin sitting there that got let go by the Phoenix Suns. Torrey Craig, Jabari Walker. It's nothing that to be super excited about. I think Amir Coffey is probably the only guy that's not a veteran minimum guy on this list. It could be more of a biannual type guy, something like that. But and he would be a good get for somebody. But this is just kind of wing depth world here at the small forward slot.
Yeah, most likely so. And do we know if a guy like Trey Lyles is on the market still or not? Because he'd be somebody I'd look at. But other than that, I mean, it's just older guys other than these guys that are going to be out there like a Torrey Craig or Jay Crowder. So ultimately, though, I really like Coffey. I think he could be a solid, he's right in the heart of his prime. I think 27, 28, solid, 6'7" wing out there for you if you need some shooting, need some spacing, and is a solid defensive player. But yeah, the wing market is just the least impressive one, I think, at this point.
Yeah, teams are so interested in making sure that they've got wing depth. And we're going to get to Trey Lyles in just a minute. Jonathan Kuminga, Donnie, you and I talked about him a little bit earlier today. Kuminga could be involved in a sign and trade that would send him to the Sacramento Kings. We'll see if that happens. He is a restricted free agent with the Golden State Warriors, but man, that's just never been the best fit. For a while, it feels like it's just time to move on there. Jonathan Kuminga I think needs to wind up somewhere else that's not, whether it's Sacramento or otherwise, needs to wind up somewhere else that's not the Warriors. But Chris Boucher, Trey Lyles, I actually kind of like Trey Lyles. Not as a starter or anything, but as a rotation 4/sometimes small ball 5. I think you could do worse than Trey Lyles. And the Precious Achiuwa. Bol is so interesting because people are so enamored with his upside still.
Yeah.
But it's just never really turned into a whole heck of a lot.
How old is Bol now? He is 25.
That's it.
Okay, he's just 25. We're getting in the trap. This is where teams and fans talk themselves into Bol because he is somebody that's intriguing. But I think I've nailed it when I mentioned before when last time we talked about him. It's been a while. That I think that the idea of Bol is better than actually having Bol, because the funny thing is, like, in some alternate reality, there's a Bol that puts it together and he's a monster, right? But we don't have that Bol with us in this one. And he was actually solid in limited run for Phoenix last year, but he's not been able to be a rotation guy, not been able to get consistent burn. So I don't know. Unless you're looking to try to develop him, put him in a high usage type role, I don't know if you really should try to take the flyer on him. But at the end of the day, it's a minimum, most likely. So if he's at the end of your bench, you give him a chance. He looks good, fine. If not, then there's not much loss there. But who really intrigues me from here is Boucher and Lyles. I like Lyles a lot because I think, like you said, we could do worse. You could do a lot worse than a glue guy like him. But Achiuwa, also reporting came out that he is looking for a team that's going to give him a sizable rotation role. So that's another thing with him, is like he needs opportunity. So you're going to need to put him as part of your rotation. And I thought there was opportunity for him last year, but just for whatever reason, Thibs didn't want to go there. And Boucher, I think, can shoot the ball a bit, can defend a bit. Older than I thought he was initially, at 32 right now. So there's that. But I think he's a guy that could be a nice pickup for a number of teams.
Yeah, agreed. I think there's interesting guys here. Obviously, Jonathan Kuminga is the only real true starter.
Yeah, there's no point even talking about Kuminga because we know he's not.
Yeah, he's not. He's going to wind up signed and traded somewhere, and I think it does make sense for somebody. But in terms of the guys who are actually available, really available, I think I might like Lyles best on this list.
Yeah, I just think he's the most sure thing steady guy there.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about the centers. Obviously, DeAndre Ayton is already off the board, but the rest of these guys still here. Jackson Hayes wouldn't shock me if he winds up back in LA, but Al Horford seems to be the one that everybody's waiting on right now on the center market. Veteran guy. And I think he makes I think he makes a lot of sense for Golden State. As much as I would like to see him on our Lakers, Donnie, I really do think Al Horford, his skill set would be perfect for the Warriors.
Oh yeah, he's a perfect fit. I would actually be almost a little bit upset if he didn't land there, because I just think it's a match made in heaven. He is exactly what they could use. And the funny thing is he also fits their timeline as well, with the older guy thing. So another year or two with the other guys there, and they'll be the oldest team in the NBA probably, but that doesn't mean they can't play. They'd be really good.
Yeah, he'd be great there. Mo Wagner, I know a lot of people tend to dismiss him because his brother is in Orlando. Even though his team option got declined, there's still that sense that he probably winds up sticking there. I still think that's probably what he does, but he was having a nice season before he had his knee injury last year. If he does wind up leaving Orlando, he could be a nice pickup for somebody.
Oh, absolutely. I just, like you said, I would assume that he stays with his brother, and if you're Orlando, you don't want to shake things up too much. You don't want to lose talent and things like that. So I think he's going to stay there and be a big part of the rotation next year.
Yeah, I agree. And I think he sticks around. Jackson Hayes.
Hayes.
How are you feeling about Jackson Hayes at this point?
Well, you know what I'll say about Jackson is I think that, like we were saying a little bit last year, he is absolutely a wing in the center's body. Or I guess he's a 7-foot wing, I guess, that can't shoot. That's the way I like to describe him. Okay. Actually, that's more accurate, because he is long, athletic, wiry, quick-footed for a big 7-foot guy. Like, he's got all those attributes, and I think that if you need a backup guy that can play in more of a switchy defense, he would actually be really good for a team like that. Where he's going to get exposed is if you're going to try to trot him out there as your lone center against a team like the Timberwolves, Lakers, and he's not going to look good, obviously, in that situation. But as a option, I think that he can be solid, especially as a minimum guy or a really, really cheap contract guy. I think there's value to having multiple styles of centers on your team. Like, you could have the big bruiser type guy, you could have a spacing guy, you could have an athlete out there. Like, I think there's value to having different looks, and I think Jackson is a guy that could fit into the equation for a team like that, having watched him extensively last year. But he really does struggle at taking advantage of switches and things like that, and he's not going to give you much more offensively than being a rim runner lob threat, but he's probably one of the best in the league at that specific attribute. Sure. So I think that's valuable, but you will need alternative looks if you're going to employ Jackson.
Yeah, he is a guy who is limited in what he can do, but the things that he can do well. He is a pogo stick, springs for legs, and he can do a lot of stuff for you there, but you're going to be, lacking a bit in the rebounding department, some of the other areas where you'd want a little bit more from him. But Al Horford, clearly the top of the class here, but some interesting names still out there. By the way, Isaiah Jackson, restricted free agent, was dealing with an Achilles injury, so we'll see what happens with him and the Indiana Pacers. But Mo Wagner, Jackson Hayes, Al Horford, some decent guys out there, but again, pretty shallow, big class. Donnie, the bottom line, there's still some players there, but the shallow pool, it's getting pretty dry here.
Oh yeah,
but still some guys to pick off here.
Yeah, absolutely. There's still some names here, and there's probably some diamonds in the rough that aren't listed here among some of the guys, and maybe even some young guys that will prove to be guys that should have been on this list, a year from now, when we look at it. But ultimately, though, free agency is nearly concluded. But can I interest you in the hypothetical, theoretical Jackson Hayes? Okay, walk with me here. Jackson Hayes, Ben Simmons, Jared Vanderbilt, Luka, and Jordan Goodwin line up for the Lakers next year.
What do you have against the rim? Why are you so mad at the rim? The orange paint is going to be chipped off.
I don't know. I think that lineup could be pretty fun to watch. The spacing would be hilarious.
Yeah, it would be negative space. Every player would just stand under the basket. Every defender would just stand there, arms up, right under the basket.
Yeah, that's what's going to happen when they sign Ben Simmons, retain Jackson Hayes, and still have Jared Vanderbilt employed. And JJ is like, you know what? I need defense.
Oh, JJ won't just go gray at that point. JJ will go bald. If that happens.
He's going to have negative hair.
Negative hair. That's right. Negative hair to match the negative shooting range of that lineup. Donnie, why did you put that on us? Everybody, give us your thoughts on the remaining players out there in free agency. Let us know in the comment section down below. Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.